In my humble opinion, I do believe the Washington Nationals just had a franchise-altering draft, but that's always been the case. Right now, it's time to get in the kitchen and cook them up.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can find me over on Twitter at RyanClary11, as I have taken my fandom and my passion for baseball into podcast form here with the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. Later on in today's show, Josiah Gray, 3 up, 3 down in his All-Star Game debut. We're going to discuss that as he got 3 Texas Rangers out, and that was just awesome. We'll discuss that a little bit later on and reminisce about last night's performance, but we're also going to discuss where I was absolutely so wrong about this Nationals team. I had a prediction before the season started that I thought this one particular group would be very good this year, and in fact, they've probably been the Nationals' biggest issue amongst others as well. We'll discuss that a little bit later on and what needs to improve going forward. But let's start off with discussing this draft class, because the Nationals, they did just finish up day 3 of the MLB Draft in yesterday's, and really, just to rip the Band-Aid off here, the Nationals had themselves a very good draft class, in my opinion. Obviously, landing Dylan Crews at number 2 overall. I talked about him the first 2 days. Dylan Crews is a franchise-altering player. He's going to be someone who's going to be a top 10 prospect in all of baseball whenever they update some rank. That's all Baseball Prospectus. They already had him at the number 4 prospect in all of baseball. And you know who's number 3? James Wood. So some sites may be going that aggressive route and putting Dylan Crews right behind James Wood. And that is why you drafted someone like his caliber. But then also, that wasn't just it. Yohandy Morales, third baseman from the University of Miami, a top 20 prospect, and the Nationals, they said they had him even higher than a top 20 prospect. He fell to them at number 40 overall in that second round. They added him. And then in the third round yesterday, with their first selection of this draft, they drafted a high school pitcher, a 19-year-old from Texas, Travis Sykora, who, by the way, not a lot of people are really discussing this, but this guy, a lot of people had him going in the upper half, possibly even in that first round. And if not in the first round, he's going to be gone early in that second round. Well, he was the number 40 prospect on MLB.com, and the Nationals now got him to sign with them most likely. That's what it's leaning towards as he talked with a news outlet yesterday, and it sure seems as if he's going to sign. This Nationals draft class was a huge one. In Mike Rizzo, we've always discussed this. Mike Rizzo has an eye for talent. He really finds these guys, and he finds value in a lot of different ways. And sometimes it may not feel that way. Let's just be honest, because the draft class over the years have not been good. May I reiterate that J.J. Cooper from Baseball America, he pulled this stat up, and it's still just astounding to me. From 2012 through present, Nationals draftees have produced 37 total home runs. Every other team has more than 100 in that time frame. So Mike Rizzo, while he does have an eye for talent, he's also got to cook them up. Because Brady House, someone who fell to them at number 11 or number 12 overall in that 2021 draft, you look at that and you're like, that is a very high upside pick there. And honestly, in a very good position, because a lot of people were expecting Brady House to be off the board in that top 8, top 7 area in that draft class. But he was not. He fell to the Nationals there. They decided to take him and gave him the money. And now he's looking like a very legit, very good prospect as he represented the Nationals in the Futures game just a few days ago. But Mike Rizzo has never had this issue. He's always had a way to really pinpoint talent. Looking back at Lucas Giolito, someone from Harvard Westlake High School, which a lot of teams, by the way, have drafted from that high school over in California, and they produced tons of talent like Max Fried and plenty of others as well. But that's not the point. Mike Rizzo, and really what this front office has had an issue with doing, is developing these guys, cooking them in the kitchen, as what I say. Because Mike Rizzo has always had the eye for talent. He was a former scout with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's drafted a ton of players over the years, and he's hit on a ton of players. But as we say that, he's also missed on a lot. And the reason why is you ask yourself this question. Is it him missing on talent in the draft? Or is it more so the development process? Or is it just bad luck? Because you take someone like a Seth Romero, I believe back in 2017 in that first round. Seth Romero, the character issues were there. The talent was there, absolutely. He probably would have gone earlier in the first round if he didn't have those character issues. But he did. And Mike Rizzo gambled on him. And it came back and it backfired as he's no longer with the Nationals organization. He came up in 2020, pitched a game or two, didn't really look that good, got hurt, and on his way. He's done. He's gone. And you look at other drafts like an Eric Fetty. You look at drafts where you take someone like a Mason Denneberg, who's still in low-A Fredericksburg back in the 2018 first round. And by the way, I think his ERA is above 9, and he's coming out of the bullpen in low-A Fredericksburg. The writing is on the wall for Mason Denneberg, unfortunately. So you've seen guys in the past where this organization has taken chances on. They've had the talent. You've had Carter Kieboom, someone who was really thought to be a high upside pick by the Nationals, someone who was even a top 25 prospect at one point in really any site that you check, someone who was progressing his way through the minor leagues. But then they get to the majors, and it all just kind of unravels from there. And it's not even just Kieboom or Eric Fetty. This has been a long-lasting list. Even Lucas Giolito never really reached the potential that a lot of people thought. He was going to be a top 10 prospect. He was even a top 10 prospect at one point in time. But this team and this organization has always kind of fumbled the bag when it comes to these big-time prospects. And it's not to say that we haven't produced stars. I'll be the first to say it. I think Mike Rizzo is one of the best executives in baseball still. But the flaw has never been pinpointing talent. The flaw has been getting all these ingredients together and making a nice meal out of it. Because the Nationals, they've always had a way to find talent, even in back half of rounds, someone who has worked their way through the system. Someone the Nationals have traded away, like a Jesus Luzardo, a Blake Trinan. The Nationals have found talent. It's never been about their drafts. To me, the issue has always been developing these guys. So when you take a Travis Sykora in the third round in this draft, while his talent oozes off the charts, this guy's got a 70 grade fastball. He has a splitter that's in a 60 grade according to MLB.com. He's got a 55 grade slider as well. Travis Sykora is one of those guys to where the Nationals could develop. He's kind of one of their home run hitting prospects. Not literally, but figuratively. He's one of those guys that you can really hang your hat on down the line if he were to develop to where a lot of teams thought he would be. Because he was expected to be a fringe first rounder to a fringe second rounder even. This guy is a legit prospect. And he's got the tools. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. And what does that scream? And oh, by the way, a right-handed pitcher. This is a Mike Rizzo pick. This is a guy that Mike Rizzo is really going to look at and say, we need to develop this guy. And if the Nationals were to reach back in their bag and really get to what they used to be as for developing prospects, to really back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when they were really developing guys, and it seemed every year we're having a new top prospect coming up and making an impact in the major leagues. They got to get back to that form. And while I think Dylan Cruz, I think you cannot mess that guy up. I truly think that this guy is going to be an impact player day one, no matter what. But when you look at a Travis Sykora or a Yo-Yo Morales from the University of Miami, those guys aren't finished products. Those are guys that you will need to work on, that you will need to really make adjustments for in the major leagues. Because Sykora himself, he does have a command issue, as a lot of young pitchers at his age do. But then Yo-Yo Morales coming out of high school, or coming out of college rather, he's got a swing and miss problem, you could say. At least that's what they project entering the major leagues, as he struck out a decent amount for a college hitter and for a high prospect as well. These are guys that Mike Rizzo and the development staff will have to do. no matter what, because they have the talent. According to all of the experts out there, the Nationals got 3 top 40 prospects in this draft, 2 top 20 prospects, and a lot of different sites. The Nationals have got the talent. And I think that's never been the issue with this team. They've always taken the best player available no matter the cost, which is what they did this round. Because those 3 guys, they are banking on them, and I think they have to. You have to hit on these guys. Mike Rizzo has to show to a potential new ownership group that, hey, I found these guys, we're developing, and here's what they're going to do. He has to have a plan in place to not only sell new ownership, but to sell the Lerner family and the fan base as well. Because we all saw those stats. Those stats are damning no matter what way you look at it as. The home runs and everything about it, the drafts have not been good over the last decade. Simple as that. They have found talent, but it's not been enough. They've drafted, they've traded a lot of guys. They've traded well, in my opinion. I think that's what Mike Rizzo and this org does best, is trading away talent and finding new talent to come in. But the draft is where great teams never miss, like the Dodgers, the Braves. The Braves are taking some random guys every damn round. And the Braves fans, they don't even question it because they know some way, somehow, this guy, whoever they take, will turn into something someday, and he will play a role for that organization going forward. So let's reiterate this. The problem has never been this organization finding talent. Mike Rizzo's got an awesome eye for pinpointing talent. You see it right away. You see the high 90s fastball. You see the raw power of guys like Brady House and Dylan Cruz, who's gotten a phenomenal hit tool. It's never been that problem. It's been the fact that you have to develop these guys. You have to season them. You have to treat them and really get them all, and they have to be a sponge of this organization and soak everything up. That is the next task for this group. And it's going to be a tough task because you've got the prospects now. You have a top, in my opinion, a top 7, maybe even a top 6 farm system after this draft. And who knows, after this deadline, it could even go up even more depending on who you ship away and who you get back. But this Nationals team, they're in a great situation as far as this rebuild goes. But again, you have to develop these guys. Because that's been the issue. Talent has never been the problem with this organization, but the development has been. So thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. Before we get into what I was so wrong about this year, and let me tell you, I was so wrong about this. It's honestly embarrassing. I'll tell you why I say that, what I was wrong about, and how we can improve that facet of this Nationals team. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at Bird Dogs. And guys, Bird Dogs make you look good. A Bird Dog stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. And this is what I love about Bird Dogs, guys. I got some big legs. When I wear my Bird Dogs like I am today, they make my legs look so good. And for a guy who's a little heftier like me, you need to make those legs look good, and they do, and that is why I love Bird Dogs, because they fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. And Bird Dogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And guys, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB, our promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I can promise you that. And now let's get back into it as the Washington Nationals. This season, it's been a little bit better than I imagined, not going to lie. Still hasn't been good. The Nationals have not won a lot of games. And in my opinion, the Nationals really haven't won a lot of games, and I think they could have won a lot more, and it's due to this Nationals bullpen. If you remember over the offseason, I was beating the drum that this Nationals bullpen would be the highlight of the 2023 Nationals, and oh my God, how wrong was I? How wrong was I about this Nationals bullpen? Let's just run through the numbers here real quick as far as the National League goes. The Nationals have the worst bullpen ERA amongst the National League with a 5.03. They've got the second worst whip at a 1.47, only behind Colorado. They've yielded the most home runs with 49 given up in the National League. The third most walks, the fewest strikeouts, the fifth most hits, and the second most earned runs. Oh my God. What a catastrophe this bullpen has been. And maybe I was naive. Maybe I was. Because I thought this bullpen going into the season, I was looking at guys like Kyle Finnegan, who finished off really well last year. Hunter Harvey, really well last year. Mason Thompson, I always believed in him. I always thought that he was going to be the guy, which, by the way, he's been very good this year. Really nothing for Mason Thompson there. He had his struggles. I was looking at Carl Edwards Jr., a veteran, someone who's been around, someone who's won a World Series with the Chicago Cubs, saying, this is a guy we're going to trade at the deadline because he was so good last year. Did he have a lot of luck? Absolutely. But this guy was still good. He was still putting up the numbers. You could see why the Nationals didn't really trade him last year, because maybe you could get something even more for him at this deadline. How silly was I? How silly was I? And then not even that, I was looking at the minor leagues and the prospects. Matt Cronin, oh, this guy has had a sub-3 ERA for what seems like 10 years now. He'll come in and he'll fit right in. He hasn't made his major league debut yet. Jose Ferrer, the breakout reliever of last year's Nationals minor leagues. He's going to come in. He's going to be very good. While he's only had a handful of moments here, he's looked pretty good. Other than that, you look at things like this. The Nationals have not been able to close out games. They simply have not been. You throw out Kyle Finnegan in there. As of recent, he's kind of gotten the job done. Then you went through a little stint of Hunter Harvey, and everyone was like, yeah, this is what it is. I wanted Hunter Harvey to be the closer. He kind of has that prototypical job, and he just has that look of a closer. The long hair, the mustache, the 99-mile-per-hour fastball, the nasty breaking pitches. He comes in, he blows a few games. And then it's like, okay, we can't do that anymore. Let's go to Mason Thompson. Mason Thompson comes in. Same thing with Hunter Harvey. You want him. You're like, oh, this is it. This is what we want from the young guy. He comes in, blows a few games. All right, we're done. Let's go back to Kyle Finnegan. He comes in. He blows a few games. And now we're back to square one. We have no idea where we're going with this Nationals bullpen, but I do think there is some room for improvement. I think Kyle Finnegan, I still believe in Kyle Finnegan down the line. Now, is he going to be a National past this August 1st deadline? Probably not at this moment, because I think he's kind of pitched his way into the Nationals selling him at this deadline. Is someone like Hunter Harvey going to be shipped off at this deadline? Maybe. If a decent-sized prospect is coming back in return, I do believe this Nationals organization really likes him. Then you have guys like Tanner Rainey, who's going to be coming back from Tommy John this season, maybe sometime in mid-August or so. So the Nationals have different pieces. And also the step up from Jordan Weems this season. Kind of unprecedented. No one really saw that coming. He's come in and pitched very well for the organization. So you have pieces in place to where you're like, how can this just not fit? Because it seems like the Nationals, they don't really have a set-in-stone closer. It's probably been Kyle Finnegan a majority of the games here. But then you look at it and you're like, how does this not work? Because you like Hunter Harvey in a setup role. You like Mason Thompson in a seventh inning, multiple inning kind of guy in a close game situation. You like Carl Edwards Jr. to come in and get yourself out of a jam. You like Jose Ferrer, the one lefty this year out of the bullpen that's been anything good. You like all these pieces. And then it's just mind-boggling to think here and just think and look at these stats and say, what has gone wrong? Because the Nationals have the talent in this bullpen. They have the mix of the veterans like Finnegan, Carl Edwards Jr., Hunter Harvey, and all those different guys. And you have your mix of youth as well, like a Jose Ferrer recently, Mason Thompson, Amos Willingham. But they still somehow have not been able to gel completely. Now, who is that to blame? I don't know. Because at some point, you just got to look and say, is this just a lack of talent? Is this bullpen just not that talented as what we thought? Was the second half of last year just a little fluky and this team got off to a hot start in that second half after they traded away Soto? Everyone pronounced them dead, and they actually played some pretty well baseball going forward? Maybe. Was it just the fact that the defense was so good in that second half last season that it just kind of put this bullpen on a pedestal? Possibly. But what went wrong this year? Because the defense hasn't been an issue. In fact, the defense has been good. But now you look at the bullpen, and it's just been a mess. And while, yes, they have been better recently, still the numbers are the numbers. They're last, or if not last, they're right near last place in every category you look at. But still, I look at this team, and I do think there is room for improvement because, one, there's really only one way to go up, for being honest. They got to improve. And two, I do think they have young guys who they should be giving more opportunities to going forward. I think it's best for the organization. I think it's best for the development of these guys. And most importantly, we just got to start winning games. Because as we've said, you can't get a top 10 pick next year. Tanking does nothing. You want to show a potential free agent class this season that we're ready to compete. We got guys in the farm system that are ready to come up. Here's our plan. Here's what we'll spend. Why don't you come to Washington, D.C. and be a National? That's what they got to sell going forward. So it's going to be a tough sell. But again, the Nationals, their eyes are on the future. You might be selling off some of these bullpen pieces. Guys like Kyle Finnegan or Hunter Harvey and Carl Edwards Jr. will certainly be gone this deadline. I'd be stunned if he was not gone this deadline. But still, the Nationals, this bullpen, hand up, me. I'm sorry. I was wrong. This bullpen has been a disaster so far this season. Even with the glimpses of sunshine in there, it's been mostly cloudy with a big old overcast over this Nationals bullpen. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. And before we get into Josiah Gray and his performance in last night's All-Star game, I got to tell you guys about our friends, our good friends over at BetterHelp. And this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. You think about this pandemic and really what has it mean for society as a whole. It's been a lot of tough times for getting people back in the sway of life because you're back and cooped up in your house. It's a lot. It's a lot on everybody. So trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And guys, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. Now let's get back into it as Josiah Gray is an all-star, pitched in his all-star game last night. And oh, how good was he? How good was our all-star Josiah Gray? I'm not going to take this time to really bitch and moan about Lane Thomas not being in the all-star game. Today is about celebrating Josiah Gray and what he did in last night's game. And think of it this way. 6 years ago, Josiah Gray was at Lemoyne Division II College up in the state of New York. He was a shortstop and a closing pitcher. Later was taken on in the comp round by the Cincinnati Reds, traded to the Dodgers, and then he skyrocketed from there. And now, fast forward 2 years since being traded from the Dodgers to the Nationals, Josiah Gray is an all-star game. And not only is he an all-star pitcher, he went 3 up and 3 down with a strikeout against 3 Texas Rangers, which, oh, by the way, the best offense in Major League Baseball. Josiah Gray, unbelievable. An unbelievable story for Josiah Gray. And I think a lot of people just kind of sleep on this factor, including myself. This guy played Division II baseball. The rise of Josiah Gray, just from getting into being one of the better prospects, one of the better pitching prospects in a great organization like the Dodgers, to being traded for someone like a Max Scherzer, one of the game's greatest pitchers we've ever seen. Jumping into this Nationals lineup, struggling in 2021, really struggling in 2022, to now having a sub-3.5 ERA, pitching in the All-Star game, going 3 up and 3 down against one of the league's best offenses. And oh, by the way, the National League, 9 years of straight losing to the American League. Josiah Gray makes his first All-Star game. Josiah Gray is the reason why the National League won this year's All-Star game. All jokes aside, though, Josiah Gray just looked great. And the story itself, I think, is just really slept on as a whole. It just cannot be talked about enough about this rise and the improvements that we have seen from Josiah Gray. Clayton Kershaw talked about it yesterday. He said he's a completely different pitcher than what he has previously seen as a former teammate of Kershaw with Josiah Gray there. It's awesome. It's just awesome to see Josiah Gray and this Nationals organization getting some shine at the All-Star game, because I truly do believe the Nationals made the right decision of moving on from Max Scherzer at that deadline and getting back Josiah Gray, someone who was, at that time, we were hoping to be an All-Star down the road, but I certainly did not think he would be an All-Star in 2023, but he is. He went 3 up and 3 down. He looked great. He added a strikeout there, and ultimately, and by the way, I need to complain about something real quick. The broadcast just totally no-sold Josiah Gray. And I forgot to write this down on my show sheet. But they just no-sold him at all. In fact, it didn't even seem like they mentioned him whatsoever. I'm sorry. I just forgot about this as I was about to wrap up. But that is something I cannot forget. I could not forget, and I did forget to write it down on the show sheet, but I'm glad I just remembered it. They no-sold the heck out of Josiah Gray. They were too worried about what A-Rod and Derek Jeter were sitting behind home plate, what they were eating. Were they eating a Snickers bar or Three Musketeers? Who cares? I want to see my All-Star out there. Yes, I want to see all the mic'd up moments and everything as well. But Josiah Gray is an All-Star. You owe me to broadcast that. I don't care about Derek Jeter and A-Rod at this moment. They had their shine. Get the All-Stars in there and make do with it. Because these guys are All-Star worthy, obviously. But you got to make it seem that way. Because I don't really care about what Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter think. Sorry. I want to see my All-Star. I want to see you guys talk about him. Give him the shine. They're the All-Stars. Not Alex Rodriguez and not Derek Jeter. Their time has come and passed. It's time for the new wave. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. Tomorrow's show, we're going to discuss a lot as we got a second half preview. Where do the Nationals need to take the biggest step up? I'll tell you everything about that. And thank you guys again for making Locked On Nats your first listen. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Enjoy the weekend off. Enjoy the day off with no baseball, because on Friday, it's coming hot and heavy. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.